Hey everybody, I'm Rob Freeman and welcome back to Insuring the Built Environment. If you would like to get in touch with me, you can go to robfreeman.com or you can just schedule an appointment with me at the link below this video. Today we're talking about solar panel installer insurance exclusions to avoid. And these are exclusions that it almost seems like they're secrets that the solar panel installer insurance companies want to keep, hidden from you, these exclusions, because I've seen this probably a dozen times, maybe more, from companies that schedule an appointment with me and they send me their insurance policies and I read through the insurance that they have and I see a handful or maybe even 10 or a dozen exclusions that honestly, no one in their right mind should ever have in their insurance if they are a solar panel installer or they're doing work at heights, they're doing work up on roofs, they are providing indemnification for third parties like their customers or partners or subcontractors or anything like that. So today, we're just going to talk about 5 of these exclusions that are really, you should never have them in your commercial general liability. And below this video, I link to an article where I go into a lot more detail. And I think there's about 10 or 11 exclusions in total that you should be aware of that honestly you just never have in your commercial general liability policy. Now, solar panel installer insurance in general is not just one thing. It's not just, your commercial general liability. You have professional liability, you have umbrella insurance, auto insurance, property insurance, builder's risk. There's a lot of different types of insurance that you can have. Specialty insurances for people in the solar industry that have businesses in this industry. But for this video, we're really just talking about exclusions in the commercial general liability policy. And again, at the article below the link to this video, there's like 10 of them. And I'm just going to go over 5 important ones that you should watch out for. You should read your insurance policy and make sure you don't have these in there. So the first one is just like a mind blower for me. The first one is a roofing operations exclusion. Okay, so you're a solar panel installer and you're going to have something in your insurance policy that says you have a roofing operations exclusion. This goes without saying. You do not want to have a roofing operations exclusions in your commercial general liability policy. It basically is going to eliminate coverage for anything working up on a roof. Okay, so that goes without saying. That's the first one. The second one is what's called an action over exclusion. An action over exclusion is problematic everywhere. Mostly, it's most problematic in places where states may impose strict liability on all parties involved in a construction project. And that would be a state like New York, which is why insurance in New York costs 10 times what it does anywhere else in the US. But an action over exclusion is a type of exclusion where your policy will exclude coverage if you're providing indemnification for another party and that party's employee and an employee of that party is injured on the job, and then they file a workers' compensation claim, and then they sue some other party involved in the construction project. So maybe they sue the building owner, or they sue a subcontractor, or they sue the GC. And if you're providing indemnification to any of those parties and they sue you as well, and you're providing indemnification to one of the parties that's being sued, and that party sends that lawsuit, tenders it back to you, your insurance company is not going to cover that type of claim. And so that's what an action over exclusion is. And it happens when you're providing indemnification for a third party where somebody, a plaintiff's lawyer, a personal injury attorney, says to the injured party, do you think that party was responsible for your injury? And the employee says, yes, I think they were negligent. And then they sue them, and that person sends the lawsuit back to you, and you don't have coverage. So that's the second one. So the third one is an independent contractor's sublimit or independent contractor's exclusion. And an independent contractor's sublimit or exclusion just basically says that if you're using independent contractors to do installation work, or you hire a subcontractor to do installation work for you, and something happens to that independent contractor or subcontractor, your insurance is not going to be 1 million per occurrence or 2 million aggregate as you purchased with your commercial general liability policy. It's going to be like $50,000, including defense costs and any other claims, any other costs related to the claims. So, I mean, that's just nuts. So you're paying for a policy that's supposed to give you $1 million per occurrence, but no, because it's an independent contractor and this independent contractor or subcontractor exclusion is in there, it's only going to be 50 grand. And I mean, you can blow through 50 grand with a lawyer's bill in, a month, depending on the nature of the claim. Okay, so that's the third one. The fourth one is a fall from heights exclusion. And a fall from heights exclusion is basically going to exclude any bodily injury or property damage claim that arises from anything involving a fall from heights. And a fall from heights can be anything involving a height differential. So if something falls from 1 foot above you and hits you on the head, so the 12 inches of a height differential, or you fall off a 6-inch curb, and you're standing on one curb and it's 6 inches above and you trip and fall off that, that's a height differential, and your insurance company is not going to pay for it. So, and that would include things like things falling from a height. So someone drops a hammer from up on the roof and hits somebody else on the head and they're injured, and you try to file a claim, or that person sues you, you're not going to have any coverage for anything involving a height differential. So anything fall from heights, if you have a fall from heights exclusion, you are not going to have coverage for that. So that's the fourth one. Now the fifth one is what's called a definition of insured contract exclusion, or an amendment to the definition of an insured contract. So in your the standard commercial general liability form, the ISO commercial general liability form, there's an exclusion for contractual liability, but it's given back by an exception to the exclusion for something called an insured contract. And if you look in the ISO general liability policy, it defines what an insured contract means. And one of the types of contracts that falls under the definition of insured contract in the standard ISO CGL form is anything where you're assuming the tort liability for a third party. And that's like a standard hold harmless. So when you go out and sell a solar installation job and your customer signs a contract with you, that contract is usually going to have like a hold harmless, where you're going to say to the customer that if something happens on the job, we will be responsible for it. You're not responsible. If someone from our company is injured, or one of our subcontractors is installing is injured on the job and they sue you, we'll take responsibility for that, because you're not going to assume our work. You're not going to assume the liabilities from our work. So, but if there's an amendment or a redefining of the definition of an insured contract, you may not have the ability to provide a hold harmless anymore and assume liability in that type of an insured contract. So basically what the definition may say is that anytime you're assuming liability for a third party, whether it's for a subcontractor or a client or anybody else in the course of doing your business, that is not an insured contract, which means that your contractual liability excludes any type of liability for bodily injury and property damage for those types of claims. So that's the fifth one, the amendment or definition of an insured contract, or what they would call a contractual liability exclusion. So that would be the fifth one. So those are 5 types of exclusions that you do not want to see in your commercial general liability policy at all. These are things where, honestly, I've seen this a dozen times or more, where solar panel installation companies literally have these policies with these exclusions in them. And I'm just like, how did you buy this policy? Because they're paying money for it and it doesn't cover anything that they do. And so it's nuts. But anyway, below the video, there's a link to an article with more of these exclusions, and you need to go in your insurance policy or have your broker look in the policy. And honestly, if your broker sold you a policy like that, I mean, you need to have a conversation with that person about what's going on, because they did not really do a good job of representing you and your company. And yeah, anyway, I hope this is useful. If you have questions about your insurance, please feel free to schedule an appointment with me at the link below this video. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.